What's up, everyone? John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo here with a full review for you of one of the hottest, most anticipated phones of 2011. This is Apple's latest iPhone 4S. Let's go ahead, give it a full review, and see if it deserves a place in your pocket. As I do with all my phone reviews, I want to start by talking about call quality on the iPhone 4S. First, this device is now available on 3 carriers, AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint. The model that I'm testing right here is AT&T. I used an AT&T iPhone 4, 3GS before that, 3G before that, and an original iPhone, so I have a bit of perspective with the carrier. Dropped calls was a huge issue that plagued the iPhone 4. Whether or not it was an antenna issue or a carrier issue is really yet to be seen, but those problems have really been put to rest with the iPhone 4S. In my just about week of usage, I didn't have a single dropped call as compared to about 1 per day on the iPhone 4. So maybe that's due to a redesigned antenna, perhaps some software or hardware tweaks, or some combination of the two, but dropped calls appear to be a thing of the past on the iPhone 4S, at least on the AT&T version. So if you're worried or concerned, you can definitely put those fears to bed. Speaker quality is pretty decent, about the same as the iPhone 4. It's not the loudest in the world, but if you need to use it for a conference, you know, it definitely will work well. If you got to listen to a quick voicemail, not going to be a problem for you.
How do you get it to shoot a dance? You put a little boogie in it.
One other cool thing to mention here, we're not going to talk that much about it, is Bluetooth 4.0. This is one of the first devices to sport Bluetooth 4.0. It hasn't been talked about much in the internet, but there is a lot of cool potential for Bluetooth 4.0 as far as data transfer, as far as even using almost NFC-like technology for payments. There's a lot of cool stuff that Bluetooth 4.0 can do that hopefully we'll see come out over the next year to 2 years. So this review is a bit difficult. It's very similar to the iPhone 4 review because the phone itself is very similar to the iPhone 4. Let's go ahead and start with one of the biggest similarities, and that is this beautiful display, affectionately dubbed Retina display. 3.5 inches, which now seems a little bit on the small side in the world of 4-inch, 4.3, 4.65, and even larger phones. 3.5 just looks downright diminutive. However, what's not diminutive is the screen resolution, coming in at 960 by 640 at the pixel resolution at 326 ppi. This is still one of the most beautiful displays on the market. Text is extremely crisp, images are incredibly vibrant, and video looks terrific. One thing that I want to mention about the iPhone and the iPhone 4S in particular doesn't really go noticed. This has tremendous multi-language support. So if you live in a country outside of the US or speak a language other than English, chances are you're going to have support for that here in the keyboard. All right, so now let's talk about the internals. The dual-core A5 chip here. It's a 1 GHz processor that's been clocked down for battery saving to just about 800 megahertz. I did notice a bit of a difference in speed when I was launching applications. Things load a little bit quicker than they did on the iPhone 4, but nothing tremendous. I think the big determining factor of the benefit of the A5 chip is going to be in a few months when developers have a chance to really code for it and to see what it can do. Certainly it's capable of twice the speed and up to, I believe, 7 times the graphics prowess. But we haven't seen that yet. All the apps that are available in the App Store were made for the 4S or the 4 hardware or earlier, so we haven't been yet able to see full advantage of the A5 chip. Yeah, it's fast, but it's certainly not a compelling reason to upgrade just for that bit of speed. The A5 chip does give you the ability to do some AirPlay mirroring, which is kind of neat. Lets you show your whole display on a Apple TV connected device. So you got to have iOS 5 on an iPhone 4S, which of course it ships with, and you have to have an Apple TV. Something to keep in mind. All right, so next let's talk about one of the biggest selling points of the iPhone 4S, and that is Siri. Siri is the virtual assistant that can do a ton of things for you, and I've been playing with Siri quite a bit. It's fun. She has a personality. You might have seen the video I did talking about Siri and some of the jokes that she can tell. Where do you come from?
Siri was designed by Apple in California.
For me though, Siri seems like a bit of a novelty. I've been using it often for reminders, finding out what the weather is, but oftentimes I just forget it's there. What's the weather today?
Here's the forecast for today.
Remind me to film an iPhone 4S review today.
At what time shall I remind you?
Noon.
Here's your reminder for today at 12 p.m. Shall I create it?
One thing to note though, there is a proximity sensor setting built into Siri that will activate it when you put it up to your head. It's always sort of searching for that sensor. It's going to completely drain your battery, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So you want to go ahead and turn that setting off. It's under Settings, General, and Siri. For me, the most useful thing in Siri is the speech to text. It was actually one of my favorite features in Android, and I've been happy that that's finally migrated over to iOS. If you don't want to type, if you guys have seen me type on Twitter, you know that I'm not the most accurate typist in the world, and that's especially true with a virtual keyboard, and especially a small virtual keyboard like the 3.5-inch screen on the iPhone 4S. So being able just to talk into the phone and have it pretty accurately say type what I'm saying has been a tremendous feature for me. This is a test of the speech-to-text functionality on the iPhone 4S. So that's one of the biggest benefits that I've used. As far as setting reminders and stuff, it hasn't been that big a selling point for me. So one of the big issues with Siri over some of the voice recognition systems we've seen in the past is that it can actually understand the meanings in your words. It's not just typing the words for you. So if you ask it for weather, it's actually going to tell you what the weather is. You ask it to make an appointment, it understands that you want it to make an appointment. It sort of understands your needs. I do wish that I could control settings though from Siri. Like say, Siri, turn on Wi-Fi, turn on airplane mode. Things like that unfortunately just aren't present there. The future is very exciting for Siri, but for me, the utility has already faded away after just a week, and I find myself barely using it anymore. So as far as a compelling reason and a compelling feature to get the iPhone 4S, for me personally, it's just not there. So one of the more compelling reasons to pick up a 4S is the new camera. This 8-megapixel sensor on the back, while it might look the same as the iPhone 4, is a huge improvement. Autofocus, grid, HDR, they're all here. I do wish that we had some sort of panorama setting in there, but it almost can replace a point-and-shoot camera. Image quality comes out looking outstanding. There's a tremendous depth to the pictures. They look bright. The light that's being let into the sensor really translates to beautiful images. So you can actually use this as your dedicated camera. Now, I always make that joke, you're not going to be Ansel Adams with your phone, and you're certainly not going to be here, but you could definitely be a local newspaper photographer and use the camera built in here. And with that camera, video quality is actually pretty good as well. 1080p video, 30 frames per second, it looks decent. Here's a quick video demonstration of the iPhone 4S. We are indoors, see how quickly it adjusts. And you can actually blow that up on a larger screen and not see much pixelization. I'm trying to not talk that much about iOS 5. It's available on a ton of devices now, not exclusive to the iPhone 4S. But it should be mentioned that you get a lot of new features. You're getting things like this new pull-down notifications tray, which you can customize. You get, finally, a redesigned notifications, which are unobtrusive. But the rest of that stuff you're going to get on the iPhone 4. So if I'm reviewing the iPhone 4S on its own as a standalone device, certainly it's recommended. It's a great phone. It offers a tremendous amount of utility. App support is outstanding. It's easy to use, and it's a beautiful looking device. However, reviewing it outside of a vacuum, in a world where the iPhone 4 exists, it's very hard to recommend the iPhone 4S. I get asked all the time, hey, should I get the new iPhone? Should I get the new iPhone? And my answer is always, well, do you have an iPhone 4? If the answer is yes, then I always say no, it's not worth the upgrade. If they have a 3GS, a 3G, or another phone, then this is a worthwhile phone to look at. For me, the reasons to upgrade from a 4 to a 4S just aren't there. The improvements in the camera are nice. If a camera is something you require quite a bit, then you might want to consider it. Siri is a novelty. I think it's going to fade very quickly. Perhaps on the next version of the iPhone, we'll see a bit more utility thrown in there. But it's tough to justify the iPhone 4S, especially when the iPhone 4 is sitting there nicely at a $100 price point. Battery life too on the iPhone 4S has not been impressive at all. On the iPhone 4, I could generally get through a full day with pretty decent web browsing, about an hour and a half to 2 hours of phone calls, 2 emails being pulled in all the time, and background syncing going on. Generally, I'd have about 40% left at the end of the day. The iPhone 4S, I've got about 15 to 20% left at the end of the day, which is a little bit disappointing. I do wish that battery life would have been improved. The faster processor and Siri certainly are a bigger drain, despite a little bit of a larger battery over the iPhone 4. So that's sort of the summation of the iPhone 4S. If it exists on its own and you're not coming from an iPhone 4, it's a tremendously powerful device and it's going to be really, really capable for you. However, if you're coming from an iPhone 4, tough. I would not want to sign 2 years away for an iPhone 4S if I had an iPhone 4. All indications that the next design, and perhaps the one after that, will be much different than what we have here, offering really improved specs. So what you get from the 4 to the 4S just doesn't justify it for me. Stick with an iPhone 4, upgrade to iOS 5, and get almost all of the killer features. So I am John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo. Do you agree or disagree? I'm really kind of curious what you guys have to say. Leave your comments down below. I will see you guys in the next video. Be sure to check out Techno Buffalo for all of your tech news. Bye-bye.